All right, we are live. Welcome to yet another weekly performance roundtable for the code review group. Today is just me and Stanislav. I think Patrick is out of office, so we can just go ahead and get started. So maybe what I'll do, just to make it easier, is I'll share the screen just to get the conversation started. So the first topic that we have is improve caching of the diff files batch API. So this is still an open issue being refined, but is there anything else left to talk about here? Do you know?
I don't think there's much to talk. All the discussions already happened in the issue, and I think there is some backend work left there. And that's basically it.
Right. So what I'll do, just to be respectful, is I'll ping Mark. Show what works on the initial cache key, which oh, David, I don't have ready to review this in cache. Show on this key. You're already here, so. And Patrick. The second one. Oh, that's Patrick. Yeah. Just checking, is there anything left to discuss in this meta issue that hasn't been moved to proper GitLab or GitLab issues scheduling? If not, please feel free to close this. Thanks. All right, sounds good?
Sounds good.
Awesome. That's the first. I wanted to also show that on the release board, we already have this in line to be scheduled, which seems to be the direct outcome of that, I think. So this will probably be scheduled. Oh, this isn't the meta issue. Never mind.
This is a proper issue, I guess.
How do I? They got the notification.
I think if you save it right now, they probably might not get it because it's not immediately sent.
Right. This. Ignore this. I'll do this. Okay.
They will still be like notified because of the username tags.
Yeah, ignore the previous comment. How do I put like? All right, that was embarrassing. So having said that, let's go over to the next one. Split and paginate file tree from the diffs metadata. We don't have.
I think Patrick is already working on that, or at least he created an issue for that and
POC
might get it into development soon.
And this is no milestone. Actually,
his latest reply is the issue itself to create a separate issue, I guess.
Yeah, that's the thing that threw me off, is that label. The label refinement is the ones that are still needing to be refined. Got it.
Yeah, so there is a new issue for the new entry point. And once that is done, we can actually try and implement front-end logic for that. But while it's not like finished, there is still a proof of concept by Patrick, which I'm going to experiment with and see if it actually improves the performance of the page.
Okay.
So front-end is not blocked by that. only the like production version of that.
So, but are they free to schedule this even before you test it, or should we test it first?
In the perfect world, we of course should test it first. I'm just not sure when it will come. So
Right.
I have to finish my milestone. So this might be
Tight.
happening on the next milestone.
Yeah.
I'm not sure.
I'm just wondering if there's any blockers for them to schedule this right away for 15.8. Spanish foundry.
But for like very big merge requests, it's definitely worth extracting because the big merge request won't load until you load the file tree, which is kind of crazy.
And we could add this to startup.js and stuff. So,
but even if we do, like if there are like 1,000 files changed, even if like one line changed, we'll still have to wait for these 1,000 files before we can show all other controls like version checks, etc.
Okay, so this is what Patrick said here. This one depends on the outcome of front-end testing.
Yeah, well, that makes sense.
And that means they're not considering it right now.
We can create a separate issue like for the front-end experimentation to test this POC that Patrick made, to implement front-end with this POC and see if it produces the results we expect, and then like open the doors for the backend issue to properly implement it.
Can you take care of opening that issue, Stanislav?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Thank you so much. All right, next one. Whenever possible, render the MR diffs from the client-side cache unless MRID is outdated. Where are
This
we
is
with
also, I
this?
guess, in the works. Patrick also created an issue, I think. What we figured out is that Chrome doesn't properly cache this request, even if we add like a cache control header that you must cache it, that there is a max age for this resource. Chrome still doesn't cache it. He still makes a request to the server. We still do the full processing. We still return 304. That resource didn't change, but there is a round trip to the server, which shouldn't be there. We've tested it in Firefox, and Firefox doesn't have this issue. So if we implement this using a cache key on the front-end side, it will work only in Firefox at the moment. I don't see how we can fix it for the Chrome, because this is most certainly a Chrome bug.
So even if we do this, it won't work for Chrome? Is that what you're saying?
Most probably, yes. At least locally, it doesn't cache these resources at all.
But right now, it's not working for anybody.
I guess some people are using Firefox. So there is some percentage of them. Like, I don't have the data, but of course the Chrome is prevalent in our user base.
But I'm not sure I get it. Right now, what's implemented today, does it have HTTP caching working for some browsers or not?
There is a different approach to HTTP caching that is working right now, which is basically send the request to the server checks the cache key and returns 304 that it didn't change. Right. So we basically have to get through some of the overhead from the Rails side. It takes about 400 milliseconds, and you get a 304 response, which basically tells the browser to reuse the previous response. So it's working, but it's not ideal. And what we want to do is to remove this round trip to the server at all. So if we provide the cache key with the page and do the request, the browser should take the request from the memory immediately.
There's a cache key.
And this memory cache is not working in Chrome right now for us.
All right, I see. No, I still feel like it would be worth considering. So I'll
Hopefully Chrome fixes this in the future and it just magically works.
yeah, we should open the bug tracker. Right, let's right, I put it in Matt's plate. Same question I asked. Yeah, I can also check. We can keep this issue for fronted if we want to once the backend is merged and closed. Oh yeah, this is already GitLab. So I'm not going to make the meta mistake again. Yeah, for sure, we can keep it open. We're probably going to be making it workflow blocked, though. Does it make sense to put blocked?
On this one?
Yeah.
Blocked by what exactly?
So I'm going to move this from refinement over to I won't submit until you see the whole comment. Over to blocked to mark that it's waiting for the backend implementation of 384895. It's the issue that Patrick said here
Okay,
above.
yeah. Okay, yeah, that makes
So
sense.
my goal is just to remove this from the weekly calls, right?
Can we also change the label here from, or okay, there's no front-end label or backend. Can we just add a front-end label that it's clear that the issue is exactly for front-end here?
For sure.
Yeah, thanks.
No worries. And I'm going to I think it already has a related issue. How do I edit it? It's funny. It's blocked by, let's see what happens here. So I have to remove it and then edit. All right. I guess that works. That's fine. He wasn't that bad. All right. Moved to all right. Next topic. How are we on time? All right. We're doing good. It's like we're in a 101. Virtual scroller.
I don't think there is anything to discuss on virtual scroller site right now.
No, yeah, it's just.
Yeah.
Do you have anything else to share?
Not really, because we're actually blocked by a lot of things. First of all, the migrations that we do are not backwards compatible. So the branch I was working on stopped working after I updated JDK. And after we rebased of the latest master, it also stopped working because some changes in GitLab UI for some reason made it broken. And the third thing is that GitLab UI actually reverted the Bootstrap view upgrade. So Ilya
Right, I remember that. Yeah.
discussed that yesterday, that there was some CSS incompatibilities with updated Bootstrap view. They had to revert it back. So I manually force an older version of GitLab UI on my rebased version, and that might also introduce some bugs to the POC. If we cannot resolve it, I'll just straight up like put it in the closet and we'll focus more on server-side rendering stuff, because it seems like a more productive approach to it with all the overhead that worker has, and it's still a lot of code on the client side. So I think shifting our focus to server-side rendering on Rails makes more sense. We've discussed it previously, I guess, and like it looks simple on the surface, like you said. It's just like few components that we convert to view templates in Rails.
Yeah.
It's not that simple actually, because we do a lot of transformations. I looked up the code,
Okay.
and it transforms the data required to render these lines into some new structures. Hopefully, I can get rid of these transformations to transfer like the templates as is to Haml. But it might take some time. I haven't dug really deep into that, but I've just discovered it that we do a lot of transformations there.
Yeah, the question of that, I'm not so worried about the server-side rendering itself. I'm more concerned about how do we hydrate it later? How do we make, after thing is put on the page, how do we bring it to life? Is that fast? Is that slow? Is there any hurdles?
I would definitely say it will be much faster, but the problem is that the code won't be as declarative as it is right now.
Okay.
Like we just mutate the state and discussions appear on these diffs and it all just works. With the new approach, we'll have to do more manual work, but the performance will be much, much faster. That is for sure.
How did you describe it? You need to be more manually updating things. All right, just broadly speaking. Okay, can we move on?
Yeah.
All right. Suppressing files and diffs to reduce overall payload. I'm not sure this has been. Oh, okay. I'd like to do a backend spec for this, but I'm afraid I won't be on time. So is that get back? Okay.
I think this is tightly related to the SSR experimentation because we can only remove this information from the batches. Like not even remove, we can completely remove the file batch API by switching to server-side rendering. So
isn't this about the suppression of the files that don't need the contents?
Are we sending the files that are hidden? If we do so, yeah, that makes sense.
Oh,
at
sorry.
least for
Yeah.
now.
Okay. I missed that particular part of the thread.
If it's centered around not sending files that are too large, for example, yeah, that makes sense.
There are two things. One, the files that are too large, we're already truncating them at a certain point, so that's already done. And if anything, we would like to move away from that truncation, but that's another story. Here is more like you run a project that generates a lot of automated files. So why should those need reviewed? I'm of the mind that any file on the merge request needs to be reviewed. Otherwise, it could be a vector for attack, but that's other stories. Here, yeah, this thread is about the server-side rendering. So what I'll probably do is I'll flag this to Matt to consider for another thing came up in the performance run. Potential spike to investigate.
I'm not sure there is anything like to investigate on the backend side here because it's just moving front-end logic to the view templates. Not logic, but the rendering of the diffs. It should be straightforward for us to do. Okay. I'm not sure we should even involve backend here. If we are able to render these diffs on the server, we won't need this API at all. So there will be nothing to do. As like there is an example here about how it will look like. So we will basically embed all the data into elements themselves, and we won't have to request it anymore.
But this will be served with a page?
Like the first, ideally,
the
the
batch
first
diffs.
files or the first page will be
Right.
served from the server, and the rest will be streamed on the client.
So the question I have there is exactly how fast, sorry, how slower will that make the page? Because that, remember, in the first day, in the first couple of, not what made us move to an asynchronous rendering of the page was exactly because the page itself that was being rendered in Haml took a lot of time to render, which is fair if it's a large file. If it's a large MR, it takes forever to render the whole files, right? But there's always the overhead of fetching the data. And that's the question. Is that overhead for the 5 files acceptable? And I think that's worth a spike for the backend to answer that question.
I think even in the worst case scenario,
You'll be faster.
will
I
be
like your
faster
hunch. I hope you're right.
because we are skipping the whole loading JavaScript, executing JavaScript, making a connection to the server, round trip to the server, getting big data, parsing back, rendering on the client. It all takes a lot of time. We just completely eliminate the step and render it immediately. And so it should be faster. I think there is just no way to outperform server-side rendering for the first render at least. And
No, I get it. It's, yeah.
and
Theoretically, I'm with you. The question all becomes, can you partially look up the files through Gitly very quickly without having to load the whole MR? Those are backend stuff that needs to be investigated. I'm still going to press Matt. I don't want to ignore what you just said. I completely hear it, but I still going to push for a potential spike to investigate this on the backend. Did he no, he didn't. Right, so all right. That brings, so okay, potential spike backend to be scheduled. Sweet. The next one. This is a new one that I introduced yesterday. So this is something that Natalia and the plan team are investigating for making the issue list labels filtered search faster. Okay. Are you aware of this? Are you on top of, do you know what this is about?
Yeah.
Okay. So I can skip a few things for you, but for the recording, so this is the MR that they currently are working on, and essentially it requires decorating the queries a little bit with some flags and stuff. And this essentially makes the data that they pull out cache persist across pages, and then it gets refreshed from time to time. And for things that are really very frequently used, it makes a lot of sense. I wanted to raise it here just to keep it in our minds. I know that we don't use them extensively on diffs, so it won't be necessarily life-changing for diffs until we move to Apollo, but we do have some stuff in GraphQL. The only question I have is how useful is persistence of stuff like the merge request widget, because that you want to be fresh and that you already have real time built into it. So if anything, I feel like we could potentially look into the user lookup, this one here, because it's like the first one is always the same. Like it's the first lookup. At least that being super snappy would be a first nice approach, and then we can build from then on. Of course, like if I start writing a name, right, then it's super fast. So but the first lookup is where we could probably benefit from something like this across pages. I don't think they're looking into it, but eventually I think they will get there, because issues are also affected. Issues are also a place where we have the at thing. So it doesn't necessarily come into our specific code review things, but I wanted to flag this in case somebody has any ideas to at least take a look and see the demo so that she had a demo on the application performance session on the 15th. and maybe somebody watching the recording will find it interesting and watch Natalia's demo. Do you have any thoughts on this, Stanislav?
I might be missing something, but I think we don't have any places where we could utilize this, because for the, as you described, for the merge request merge widget, we always want to have the fresh state, because people are constantly confused with our merge widget, like why it's not merging or why it doesn't allow you to merge. So introducing their outdated state will make it even more confusing.
Yeah.
For the autocomplete you described, I think it doesn't use GraphQL API, which is one of the limitations of this proposal.
All right. Oh, yeah.
Is that you have to use GraphQL.
You have to move that to GraphQL too.
And yeah, this is a big
We use it for
limitation for us.
reviewers. For reviewers, we use GraphQL. The question I have, would it be that much of a life-changing thing to have the reviewers be popping up real quick and then update through real time?
This is one of the issues I wanted to discuss with you as well, to improve the autocomplete UI, which is making a request each time you type. I think we can just reuse the data on the page itself, because we have all the usernames from the comments, from assignees, reviewers. We already have all this data. We can reuse it, but it's not coded into the suggestions widget.
Yeah, I don't see why not. Well, why we couldn't do that. There's two things there that we need to be aware. One is that the @ is used everywhere, so whatever we do, it needs to be resilient and potentially gather data from different places, like the epics or the issues or the MRs or stuff like that. That's one. The other is we need to check if there's anybody already planning on working on that, or for example, refactoring that into GraphQL, because then we'll be working on something that will be killed. So it might be worth creating an issue for it if you haven't already.
There is one issue already.
There is. Can you link it?
Yeah.
An agenda?
I think you also participated on that one. Yeah, the last activity on this one was 3 months ago.
I might forget. Okay. Do you have the link?
Yeah.
There it is. Instant autocomplete. Oh my God.
I played locally with it a little bit because I was frustrated by this recently. I scrambled through the code and it's not straightforward because it already has cache, and we basically have to introduce another level of cache, which is like pre-caching stuff, and then properly caching the requests. It will make the logic a lot more complex. So that's why I created, like that's why this issue is there, because it involves a lot more time than I expected actually.
Okay. There's one thing that I think I'm going to do. Well, first, I must commend the 3 months old me, because it sounds really smart. No, but more seriously, I'm going to drop a note to Natalia to check whether given the work that she's doing on the persistence of Apollo cache, do they see as a candidate for that improvement requiring refactoring into GraphQL? Think it's worth asking?
Maybe if someone's working on moving this to GraphQL, of course we better know this in advance.
So let me just share the screen again. We'll do it together because it's more fun that way. It's coming up in our chats again. Natalia, come on. This is just an example of where this is very meta.
Yes, exactly.
Given your in-flight work about I never know how to write Apollo cache. But
it's 1P, yeah.
Thank you. Apollo cache persistence. The question on whether this should also be moved to GraphQL to benefit from that persistence came up. What do you think? Do you have thoughts on this? It doesn't exclude making the optimizations for reusing page relevant users, author, reviewers, etc. But if that is to be done, the work can be planned iteratively around taking that into consideration. To be clear, we don't have any immediate plans to schedule this. So if anybody wants to tackle this, feel free to go ahead. I always hate when I leave a comment and somebody then later, like a couple of months later, oh, I thought you were working on it. You were commenting on it. No. We were just spitballing. Right. Thanks, Stanislav, for bringing this up again. That's good?
Yeah, sounds good.
Also got to CC Donald and John. I don't know who. Donald's already in the thread. Right. Thank you so much. That was interesting. Anything else on your mind that we want to discuss before we wrap this up?
I think the view-free migration is taking long for us.
Okay.
Since we are actually dependent on this stuff, I think we shouldn't expect it to land anytime soon.
Okay. So your point is that we shouldn't count on it for the immediate.
Yeah, we shouldn't count on it because all the issues in GitLab UI with Bootstrap View migration to the new version.
Okay.
And the pace that GitLab UI is taking to update all the stuff, all the broken stuff, it might take a while. So we shouldn't like make a big stake on the view-free stuff, at least for now, and work with what we have.
All right.
So
well, that
these
sounds
are my
reasonable. I'm particularly interested in investigating the partial server-side rendering part and see how we can benefit from that realization that a lot of our page, the big bulk of data that we're transferring is pretty static. So, okay, this has been useful and productive, and that's it. Do you have anything else to talk about? Can we just end it here?
No, I think that's it.
Right. Stay on the call. Just give me 1 second. Thank you, everybody who's watching the